With our smart rust nanoparticles, we are on the way to develop a universal and sustainable concept to clean water, where the key really lies within understanding what's going on the molecular scale.
Hello, I'm Hedley Marchak from the American Chemical Society. Welcome to this media briefing for ACS Fall 2023. Pouring flecks of rust into water usually makes it dirtier, but researchers have developed what they call smart rust that actually makes it cleaner. Smart rust is made of coated iron oxide nanoparticles that attract different substances, and the nanoparticles can easily be removed from water with a magnet along with the pollutants. Today, the team is reporting how they've tweaked the coating to trap estrogen hormones, which can be potentially harmful to aquatic life. We're joined today by Marcus Halleck and Lucas Mueller from Friedrich Alexander University, Erlangen-Nuremberg. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Marcus, how did your research team develop smart rust, and which pollutants did earlier versions target?
So first of all, we have to clarify what is smart rust. These are commercially synthesized iron oxide nanoparticles. They are produced in huge masses and used in industry as in catalysts or as pigments, or even in medicine and diagnostics. So they are inexpensive, ton-scale accessible, non-toxic, and they have a special feature. They have a huge surface area, which is important to collect later on pollutants, and they are super paramagnetic. That means they are not attracting each other, but they are attractive to external magnets. Our mission is to make them smart, and we equip them with functional molecules by a self-driven, self-terminating process called self-assembly to define the surface of these particles. And we can use different molecules. For instance, if we equip them with an alkyl chain molecule, then the surface of the particle becomes hydrophobic. And for instance, if we take now oil, what is swimming in the water that is hydrophobic, consisting of hydrocarbons, this oil is attracted to the surface of the nanoparticles. And they surround these particles like a corona. And this arrangement is stable enough to could be removed together with the iron from water. Another smart property could be introduced if we tune the surface charge of these particles by these different molecules. Then we can tune them either positive or negative. And if we now take micro nanoplastics, what has a certain surface charge, and we add oppositely charged nanoparticles to this water, then the nanoplastics is attracted by these particles and they glue together to form agglomerates, which then could be removed magnetically because they have a certain iron oxide part. So by this we can go to many more examples. Important point is that these attractive interactions are non-covalent. So they are reversible. That brings us to the point that our materials can be used several times. So we also develop techniques in parallel to recycle our smart rust catchers.
Lucas, why were you interested in tweaking the smart rust to trap estrogens?
So first of all, hormones like estrogens are also a very important class of environmental pollutants. So when they are released to the environment, people classify them as so-called endocrine disruptors, which means that they can somehow interfere with the hormonal system of humans or, for example, mammal animals. And by this, it has been shown that they can have effects on male fertility, for example, also on feminization of populations, which is obviously not so good. The problem is that the conventional wastewater sewage plants, for example, here in Germany, are not able to completely and sufficiently remove them, which means that they are then present in a very low concentration in, for example, the environmental waters. And therefore, as a next follow-up step from what Marcus said before, where we basically coated the particles with single types of molecules to aim at, for example, higher concentrate pollutants in a not so specific way. We now wanted to tweak them to have multiple interaction motives on the surface by combining, for example, two molecules. And the nice thing about the estrogens in particular is that they have very comparable structure motifs. So they're all composed of an apolar body with electronegative moieties at the ends, which enables us to reduce the already complex problem to a much simpler one by having those, or to investigate then the structure property relationships when they interact with the spions.
And how have you done this?
As I already mentioned slightly before, we are now using two different kinds of molecules, two different kinds of phosphonic acids that strongly bind to the surface and self-assemble into a certain structure. One carries a positive charge, so that is basically the counterpart to the electronegative moieties of the oestrogens. And the other one is a long alkyl molecule that enables or provides hydrophobic interaction sites. And the idea behind the whole project is that thereby, by combining these two different kinds of molecules, we not only make the surface thermodynamically attractive by having these interactable interaction motifs, so to speak, but also to sterically enable the pollutant to fit in. And thereby to increase the selectivity a bit more in comparison to other remediation methods.
And have you tested the SmartRust in the lab then to clean water samples?
Yeah, Luca's project to the magnetically removement of hormones is in the phase of lab testing. It works, we can remove hormones successfully, but the focus at the moment is still on the understanding and optimization of the binding and to create the right collection motives. So therefore, we're working in pure water to exclude any cross impact. However, for other kinds of examples of contaminants, like glyphosate, micro nanoplastics, or oil, they have been successfully remediated from natural surface waters like rivers, lake water, or even seawater from the Mediterranean Sea, or even from industrial wastewater like drilling water for oil. So it's reasonable and adaptable to different kinds of water.
And then what are some of the next steps for this research?
So now that we know that we can clean the water from those estrogens, the key in understanding lies really in understanding what is going on the molecular scale, especially to prove our hypothesis. And therefore, we are working together with many other groups, and we try to combine state-of-the-art methods like solid-state nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, which is a technique that enables us, for example, to understand intermolecular interactions on the surface. But also we want to do small angle neutron scattering experiments that enable us to investigate also very light elements on the nanoparticle surface in comparison to other methods where X-rays are used. And also we're working together with people from the simulations. And overall, our aim is to basically combine these different puzzle pieces to create a better understanding of what is actually going on the molecular scale. And the final step, of course, for all our research is to then go to real water samples and to analyze how they actually behave with other pollutants or with other contaminants in the water phase, but also to really go down in the concentration to be able to analyze real water trace concentrations.
It sounds like you're still in the early stages, but is there a possibility of commercializing SmartRust nanoparticles for cleaning water in the future?
Yes, it is. The scalable production of our SmartRust is already demonstrated. Currently, we're working to develop a prototype of a kind of machinery that can be placed and tested as a fourth stage in commercial sewage treatment plants.
And finally, what would you like viewers to take away from our talk today about your research?
Wow, a novel, universal, and sustainable concept to clean up our water.
And from my side, maybe from the hands-on perspective, especially to solve problems like this that are very at the edge of science, I really see that working together with other people and great other people makes all the difference. So overall, the whole is really greater than the sum of its parts.
Thank you both for sharing your research with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Be sure to check out our other media briefings for ACS Fall 2023, which will be posted throughout the meeting at www.acs.org/ACS Fall 2023 briefings.